Hi, I'm Peter Carey of Dracon Interactive, and I'm presenting Froggy Doom, an exercise in malicious pleasure. Froggy Doom is a game made for two players. The players must attempt to jump over their opponent. Each successful leapfrog will earn them 1 point, however, they have to be careful of the dangers of doing so. If they mistime or miscalculate their jump, they fall into various traps. The players don't have to take turns, it's entirely freeform. If the players jump at the same time, they will just bump into each other, but there is a time limit, so you can't just wait out the other player. The game is set on a series of platforms. The platforms have open edges, and there are procedurally occurring traps throughout them. There's no bottom to the stage, so if you fall off a platform, you fall out of the level. If you get baited into frogging into a trap or off the edge, you lose points, and that can be how you win the game. Froggy Doom is a game designed to affect enjoyment, but particular areas of this larger topic. Fiero is an emotion common to competitive gaming. It's the joy you get from competition. But Froggy Doom aims to introduce the emotions of schadenfreude and gloating into this emotional cocktail. Schadenfreude is defined by the Ekman's Atlas of Emotion as the enjoyment of the misfortunes of another person, usually a rival. It's further expanded on by Nietzsche as the passive enjoyment of misfortune, such that the experiencer is not the cause of that misfortune. What Froggy Doom focuses on more is gloating, the pleasure in actively and directly causing a rival's adversity. I'll go into this a bit more later. As described in the previous slide, Froggy Doom encourages players to bait their opponent into attempting to frog over them. The result of this is that their opponent makes an idiot of themselves as they sail to their doom. By creating this openly competitive but friendly atmosphere, I hope to create an outlet for the expression of both schadenfreude and gloating. This outlet would allow players to enjoy themselves fully without the normal social restrictions imposed. To show this from another perspective, we view people like Nelson from The Simpsons negatively. That's because Nelson is made up of almost pure schadenfreude. His entire personality is made up of laughing at others' misfortune, which he's usually not the cause of. Were this real life, people like Nelson would be shunned, and with good reason. No one wants someone always laughing at them at their worst. These emotions are named malicious pleasures for a good reason. But when shunned, people are removed from the observation of standard social practices, and the problem generally isn't solved. They still act inappropriately. Friedrich Nietzsche goes so far as to say that the repression or concealment of this emotion may breed resentment. This is a vengeful, petty-minded state of being, where one does not so much want what others have, as want others to not want what they have. He defined it as a slave morality. A game such as Froggy Doom would allow for the socially acceptable expression of schadenfreude, allowing for Nelson to have an outlet, yet still grow his emotional maturity. The game will have a pixel art aesthetic, to attempt to bolster a friendly atmosphere, and conform to limited resources. There will be 2 frog characters, slightly different to help players differentiate themselves. Ideally, there will be at least 4 different types of frog, to allow avenues of personal choice. Traps include mechanics such as spikes, trapdoors, or bounce pads, as you can see there. Just simple mechanics. The players would not be split screen, instead sharing the full screen as the camera bounce change to accommodate their positions. You can always see every character. John Portman stated, "Outlaw emotions may be culturally relegated to silence, and new ways of describing them may be socially discouraged." It's no secret that certain emotions are socially unacceptable in Western society. Public rage or lust are seen as base emotions, never mind greed or jealousy. Many modern psychologists are finding that these emotions are not only acceptable, but essential to the makeup of a healthy construction of a healthy psychological makeup. The repression of these emotions leads to unhealthy mental tendencies. Schadenfreude and gloating are 2 such emotions. However, common decency may limit malicious pleasure. Within polite society, it is considered rude to laugh at that dude who just tripped. Schadenfreude and gloating have been censored since at least 1852, with the Archbishop of Dublin saying, "What a fearful thing it is that any language should have a word expressive of the pleasure which men feel at the calamities of others. For the existence of the word bears testament to the existence of the thing." yet they were recognized by Nietzsche as possessing positive attributes as far back as 1887. To see others suffer does one good. To make others suffer even more... Sorry. To see others suffer does one good. To make others suffer even more. This is a hard saying, but an ancient, mighty, human, all too human principle to which even the apes might subscribe. Nietzsche saw these emotions as not only positive, but empowering. He viewed the pleasure of schadenfreude as lesser than the pleasure which is actively earned, gloating. He also suggested that those experiencing schadenfreude are less empowered than those who actively make others suffer by directly defeating them in competition. The latter also being known as gloating. Froggy Doom allows players to have a direct influence on the misfortune of their opponent, thus promoting empowerment and triumph as the victors gloat. By allowing for this open expression of emotion, we avoid resentment, the deep-seated resentment, frustration, hostility, accompanied by a sense of being powerless to express these feelings directly. In short, Froggy Doom hopes to encourage mental health by getting people to laugh at each other. For the most comfortable atmosphere and the greatest emotion, Froggy Doom is a game to be played with your friends and your family. It is of course not the only one of its kind. Games such as Duck Game, Super Mario Party and the Jackbox Party Pack are all games made to be shared locally with a group of mates. Fortunately, while this market is very well established, it's not oversaturated, especially with modern games such as Halo 5, choosing to focus exclusively on the online play components, forgoing the local components. Froggy Doom is not only made to be enjoyed locally, but specifically for the couch. Players should be comfortable when playing this game, so as to begin the experience from a stable mental point. From here, the players may progress to the floor or standing as their emotions dictate, but starting from a consistent physical and mental position helps set a ground pattern for recurring psychological events. Finally, pixel art is not only a style, but with increased access to rudimentary game tools over the last half-decade, pixel art has become the style of choice for low-resource game devs who need aesthetically pleasing graphics with low skill and time requirements. Games such as Stardew Valley, Pokemon, and Fez have lent this style increasing weight and authority within the game industry. My target audience is 14 to 22 years old, both male and female. I'm aiming at this range as this is the onset of puberty. Technically, the onset of puberty would be from 10 to 12, however I want to focus on players that are already there. It's during this time players are struggling to sort out their personal and social identities, and it's a very important time for the formation of good mental health practices. It's also a time in which emotions run high, with high competitive spirit, fiero, with effects on schadenfreude and gloating as well. I'll be aiming at the console market in line with the local couch gaming design features. This will mean consoles such as Xbox, PlayStation, and the Nintendo Switch. The last of these may be the most important, as over the last decade Nintendo has been focused on portraying themselves as a family-friendly, fun company. This began with the release of the Wii, the Wii U, and finally the Switch, and is reflected in games such as Super Smash Bros. And Pokemon. Should this game be released on Switch, we'll have an easier time gaining traction within these play spaces. The average age of a console gamer is 25 to 34. It's slightly higher than our target, but it's definitely still within acceptable statistics. My inspirations for this project include games such as Super Smash Bros., Duck Game, because both of those games are amazing family-friendly couch gaming. Gang Beast is another local competitive game, but it's got a feeling of goofiness which I aspire to with the project. It's going to help me create a friendly competition, steering away from the toxic competition you see in games like Dota 2. Lethal League is a game that is a simple mechanic with many masterable facets. In the beginning, all you have to do is move and hit the ball, but the timing, just every small bit. So it means that I can get players to immediately be able to play the game, but it rewards them for developing their skill set. Here are my references. I'd like to thank you very much for listening to my presentation.